Hello, everyone. Welcome to 10 Minutes with Barb and Ron. Once again, Ron is making me laugh before we introduce ourselves. Barb Gentili Green here.
Okay. I'm Ron Rogers with OCALI. And that's the exceptional thing about 10 Minutes with Barb and Ron is it's a fun time for everybody. And, Barb's right up to her eyebrows in real world stuff in her district. And she's got these bags that she carries around with her of what students need and expectations and all these things that just drive her through the day every day. So, if I can give Barb 10 minutes of laughter along with anybody else that watches this with Barb and I, then you know what? Barb and I have done a pretty good job. But the big thing is Barb and I have to be in one of those fun, light moods. So it always takes me a few minutes, but Barb gets there. She's there all right.
Yeah, Ron, that is so true because, I was telling Ron, I ran in here at the last minute for our taping and I was late, of course, but, I was working with the student, helping him with some math work and, my mind all the way down the hall is thinking about him and thinking about another student that I was helping in the lunchroom today. And so it does take a minute to just relax and get your brain ready. So I hope that our intro here is let all of you kind of relax your brain and get ready for our topic. And Ron's pulling out his timer, aren't you, Ron?
So how did you know? How did you know that? I've got to set it.
Did you not do your checklist today, Ron? Did you forget to do your 10 minutes with Barb and Ron checklist?
Yes, I did.
Me too.
I did. I put Big Sur on my laptop this past weekend. So it took everything in me to get just the recording software to work correctly with it. So I did not go down the checklist. I did reboot. Did you reboot?
I did not reboot, Ron. So we better just get right into our topic because we're just pulling out all of our things we forgot to do. So what are we going to talk about?
So Barb, the other day, I was talking to this person that was looking for a teaching job and just a new student out of college, excited to get a teaching job and stuff. And I told her, I said, you're not going to have any trouble getting a teaching job, but, and kind of, just went over some of the highlights of her strengths that I thought she might have or that she does have. So anyway, so I asked her the other day, I said, how do you like your new job? Because she got hired right before school started in the elementary. And she said, it's tough. She said, I just got to be honest. It's hard. It's my first year. And she said, on top of that, she said, I've got a co-teacher.
Oh,
I'm like, wow, you got a co-teacher. Well, what else could you want? She said, to see her?
Uh-oh.
I'm like, what do you mean? I said, you guys are probably doing, you're planning together and, you have shared students because they're all your what? She's like, I've only seen her a few times. And she said, she just comes into the classroom once in a while, usually to get the students that she thinks are hers. Like, oh,
yeah. So do we call that, co-teaching by paper, but not reality? Is that sort of what that means?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, and it makes you wonder how often does those things happen? And is that what we're used to now? Mm-hmm. And if we are, then I'm not sure that our kids are getting what they should be getting out of any of this. She knows, even as a new teacher, that that's wrong. Mm-hmm. She would love to have a companion to just talk to and be able to plan for all the students. And she has this conceptual vision from being in college that all means all. These are all our students. Why are you always taking yours out of the room? Mm-hmm. Because you think they're yours. And why can't we just, really look at co-teaching the way co-teaching should be? And of course, what do you say? What would you say to a new teacher that brought that up?
Right. Well, you know me, I'm sort of like, I just jump right to the point. So one of my first things I might say is, talk to me about what your understanding of what co-teaching should be. Like, what's your definition of co-teaching? Because I think that we throw that term around and everybody has maybe a slightly different idea of what it is. So, what I would be listening for and hope that I would hear is that co-teaching is where two professionals, because teaching can be two teachers. It can be a general educator and another general educator. It can be a general educator and an intervention specialist. It can be a general educator and a related service, like a therapist providing service, but two professionals who co-plan and provide instruction on behalf of all of the students in the classroom. So there's that, I think you brought that up, that planning piece. Like, that is really important. In Ohio, we've tried to start thinking about co-planning to serve as opposed to just co-teaching, because we're forgetting that co-planning part. So that's one thing I would look for is like, let's clarify the definition of co-teaching first.
You always have the answers, Barb, without a doubt. And, I think when she looked at me and said, I'd just like to see her once in a while, my mind just went, and I couldn't think of anything else. I mean, it's kind of like when a child comes up to you and you're the teacher and they tell you something that's happening at home and it just takes you off guard and your mind goes boom. And you really you don't want to look startled because of what you just heard, but yet you're like, oh my goodness, what do you even say to that? I mean, I don't even know if there's words, for it, but you always have that great acknowledgement and then, ideas. And I think that's super.
Well, and one of the things that I think happens is, so she says, I'd just like to see her every now and then. So a really important part of a co-teaching relationship is that trust and parity. So really being able to trust that, first of all, this is in our schedule, so we're going to honor that schedule and we're both going to be there for our students at the time that it says. And that parity, that, equal partnership in designing lessons, in assessing lessons, in providing instruction, so that we are both equal partners. It's not like you're the one who's presenting all the content and I am the one that's just walking around helping the students. Like, we have this shared, responsibility. So that when I look at co-teaching teams here, that's what I'm looking for. Is there some sense of parity and trust and communication that is in place between that team?
So as you think about this, Barb, and here's I'll just throw in there what I'm kind of thinking about it. I'm thinking the next time I see this girl, I'm probably gonna say something like, we talked about co-teaching, that you're a co-teacher. I'm wondering, if it's time, since you've been there long enough, maybe you should kind of talk to the principal about whether you could get you and your partner could get a little extra professional development on co-teaching, or come to an understanding what that means for the two of you in this elementary building. Do you think that's too much for a new teacher?
I think the new teacher would really appreciate that. I brought in some co-teaching training into our district, and we had two brand new teachers that were there. And it was, within the first month of school. And I wondered that very same thing. I thought, am I overwhelming the teacher with this? But the reality is, if that's what their schedule says and that's their day, understanding how to do it will help them feel more comfortable. So I think it might, instead of overwhelming her, might make her feel a little more prepared to do the job as it's supposed to be done.
Okay, so with 20 seconds left, Ron's going to make that his job to follow up the next time I see her and mention that to her. So with that said, Ron's out, and I hope everybody enjoyed 10 minutes with Barb and Ron.
So I am sorry, because I'm going to take us a little over 10 minutes, because I think this is a really important thing to say, that truly the purpose of co-teaching when we're talking about students with disabilities is to provide that specially designed instruction within the general education classroom. That is really the role of the special educator when she is in there, to design instruction, provide that specially designed instruction, and to get kids into smaller groups so that they can talk more and engage more. So again, tying it right back to UDL, it will help with engagement. Small groups, specially designed instruction, engagement between our learners. And with that, Barb is out.
Bye. YouTube, please subscribe. Like, comment, and share.